And all of a sudden now, Trump has said immediately, if you are a white South African, they're doing very bad things to South Africans, they're doing bad things, they're taking their land, they're doing a lot of despicable things. I'm going to fast track your citizenship to America. Now, everybody knows that I'm a Trump fan. The reason I'm a fan of his is because he whooped Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and I fucking hate the liberal Democrats. But I also love South Africa, and I got to say that, wait, Trump offering refugee status to white South Africans is a little bit ridiculous. With all the stuff that's going on in this world with people suffering, this is the group of people he chooses. We all know who's standing behind him. It's Elon Musk. Elon Musk is mad because South Africa will not allow him to run Starlink in their country because they said he has to at least hire 30% of the individuals. So to me, that's what this is all about. This is about, and even more, Elon Musk is a white South African, and even though he's not Afrikaner, he feels some sort of semblance of belonging to them. So what are your thoughts, Kunle Williams? Yeah.
Well, if what he's saying is basically what Americans say to black people in America, which is go back to Africa. And so all these South Africans be saying, go back to America or go back to Europe.
Maybe he has a point. Come home, come home.
He has a point. If it's not really, if he wants to, but I mean, they've been there. You know, the way I look at life, if you've been born and raised somewhere, you are from that place. I'm just putting a bit of tongue in cheek. Exactly. It's just a bit of tongue in cheek. But I think that, like I said before, this movement in Western Europe and America, this right-wing movement started with the irritation at immigrants. The immigrants were caused by these Western nations bombing the hell out of these countries or wrecking their economies. So these people now come over to their countries as economic migrants, and then they hate them the more. And then when they were bombing them, they thought that they were spending money to help them. They didn't know they were spending money to mess them up, force them to come to their country, and then they now see them all over the place, and then they get irritated. And, sometimes you see some reasonable people turn nasty. And I think let them do their worst. If they want to be, they say, oh, I'm not racist, I just don't want the foreigners because they're causing X, Y, Z. Let them, okay, you're not being racist, no problem. Kick them all out. Do your bloody worst. Just do your worst. I think that let them get it out of their system. If they want to, because they like to use excuses and ways to say it's not really the black people, it's this, they're just using excuses, but we know the truth. Because I'm standing there looking at you doing your nonsense. So do your worst. Throw me out. Say you don't want to deal with me. I don't mind.
But here's the thing.
But I'm tired. When they realize that stuff like cocoa, coffee, palm oil, when they realize just how dependent they are on African resources, let them kick us out. Let us sort ourselves out. Let's get China and Russia to help build our infrastructure, sort our economies out. Let's right our government. Let's clear our corruption, make our places. And even with the problems we are having, if you look at Lagos today and you look at Lagos 15 years ago, we progressed. So in spite of the nonsense that's
I'm probably, where is, I don't see this guy there. Put him in. It's Kid Hats. Is he there?
Okay. He's not even. Yeah. So I just feel they should just be allowed to do their worst. I don't even want anybody to come and say, oh no, so you be so mean to the black people. I don't even want to hear that. Let them just do their worst. When they are tired.
Yeah, but let's get back on track, Kunle, because we're talking about the white thing. Because this
is exactly what I'm saying.
I know you might want to round up because all the black South Africans will be like, he's talking about he's not talking about the white folk. Get back to the white folk. I'm just kidding, but you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, he's talking about. I'm not. Who is surprised that Trump and
even AfriForum, which is a racist group, the whites, they said no, we don't want Trump's thing because they want to stay in South Africa. Because if they have to leave, it's a defeat for them too. But I think in general, whites have been leaving South Africa because they have no other choice. Because South Africa's economy is not viable. Even whites can't make a living in South Africa anymore. The whites that are doing well in South Africa already have a lot of wealth. But a lot of whites that I know in South Africa went to Britain, they went to Australia, and now America's inviting them. And do you remember what I said on the last show? And you will also remember this side. Didn't I say that when this thing gets bad, the West will take care of the white folks in South Africa? Didn't I say so? And lo and behold,
and it's happening now. Yeah.
Everybody out there watching the show, never bet against me because I'm a prophet. Continue.
Yeah. So basically, the way I see it, I think first and foremost, that expropriation act, the land law, for me, they did not properly articulate the details of that law. And so it was communicated in a very negative way. And that has
Can I jump in very quickly?
Yeah.
Just very quickly. Here's what the law says. I've actually read it. Most people are not reading it. The law says that if the government needs lands for things like mining or things for public well-being that are really urgent, they have to negotiate with people who have this land and give them at least some type of reparation. But in some cases, they won't give reparations. Like if they have excess land they don't even need. And they said that the government appropriating it is temporary. Temporary. It's not like it's forever, but only in emergency cases. You get my point. Yeah, continue. Yeah. I just wanted to say that because a lot of people don't want to talk about what, but you're right. It is a vague law because it doesn't go into the nitty gritty.
But if there's clarity, the way you have explained it, I see no reason why America should seize that as an excuse to begin to find a way of fast tracking the path of white South African farmers to the US. Because most of these people are culturally attached to South Africa and they've been there for years. And most of the land that they own are used for agriculture. And they are making a lot of turnover and money from it. So by the time you leave this land and hand it over to maybe black owners, it may not be as commercially viable as it was under the white people. But then again, I feel South Africa should push to educate and make the black, population in South Africa, more empowered, so that if some of these things are transferred to them, they can just make it just as commercially viable as they were. I think there's a gap. There's an empowerment gap between the white and the black.
I think it's a bit insulting to the white South Africans, though, what they want to do. But the suggestion that you should come to America because they're being unfair. If I was a white South African, I would consider myself an African or an African or whatever. But I'm not telling me to leave my home. I mean, I was born here, my father, my grandfather.
Let's flip it the other way. Let's say Trump says, oh, I felt so bad for the Igbos and the Delta in Nigeria. You can come to America with Nigerians say, hallelujah, hallelujah. Am I lying? Am I lying?
Well, you know what he's doing is basically, this is how Sierra Leone was.
It's true, Mustafa, but they are going to the US. They are going to be second-rate citizens. They are not going to have rights the way they have when they were in Nigeria. Let me tell you what I believe. Let
me tell you what I believe. If white South Africans go to the U.S., within 5 days, they will be better treated than black Americans who've been there for 500 years. And they'll be treated better than
strange
because they're white. Let me tell you something, Afabi. Look at Afabi. Look, Elon Musk is a white South African, and now he's the richest man in the world because he's in America. Yeah. When you're white, it doesn't matter where you go, you will be treated well. That's my argument. Elon Musk is now the president of America, and he's not even a white American. He's a white South African. Do you see what
Trump was Trump is kicking out the Ukrainians. So I don't really know what he's up to. I mean,
let me tell you what's going on very quickly. Let me tell you what's going on very quickly. Based on Trump's behavior now, and then we're going to go to Saeed. Trump has insulted Zelensky, called him a dictator. He's friends with Russia. Russia is behind Trump's behaviors now towards Ukrainians. I'm sure that the godfather Putin told him, listen to my friend, you better show these Ukrainians who the motherfucker is. So right now, Trump is for sale right now. I'm not dissing him. He's for sale. He's following his backers. It's very clear that Putin is now a major backer of Trump. Because for Trump to say that on the same day he says white South Africans can come in, he now sends out white Ukrainians and says that as of April, they have to get the fuck out, the ones with temporary citizenship. The world is changing, man. What are your thoughts, Saeed? Yeah. And then we'll go to Ukraine. Yeah.
I think Saeed is frozen.
Yeah, he's frozen. We got to move on.
The world is changing, and Trump seems to be changing with it. And from day to day, he seems to be flipping on positions. And because he's flipping on positions, some people are saying, "Oh, Trump is this, Trump is." I can't really make any decision on what he's doing. I mean, on the side of the economy, I don't think he's doing well. But on this side of foreign policy, I think that he's making the world actually look at itself and be honest with itself about its issues.
Because he's not doing anything. He's actually not using any imperialistic or fascist mechanisms. He's using trade, which is allowed. He's saying he won't give you money.
And he's making everybody sit up. Everybody's sitting up now.
Oh, they have to sit up.
The best way to end economic immigration is to make those countries decent enough to live in, so you don't need to immigrate. That's the best way.
But here's the thing:
oppressing those countries, and they'll stop. People will stop coming to your country.
Here's another thing. There's one constant with Trump now. He's cutting the U.S. budget. He's cutting funding for everybody, and he's putting tariffs on other countries in an attempt to try to preserve America's economy. So what we see Trump doing now is that he's a isolationist, and he's looking inward now. America. He's also cutting NATO. He said that Europe is responsible for NATO now. So what I think Trump is doing is finding any excuse to cut money, because now he's cutting funding to South Africa as well. He's cutting funding to them, which is why he says that whites can come there. And also they get a benefit because by bringing in white South African immigrants, they bring in a very skilled labor force. White South Africans are some of the most skilled workers in very high level working all over the world. They're very smart. So, and this is what I think Elon Musk's dream is, to bring his bros, his tech bros, all the smart guys in South Africa, bring them to populate America and add more people who will be voting for the Republicans. Remember, Ukrainians vote Democrat. That's why their ass is about to be shipped back to Ukraine.
Yeah. I think all these cutbacks is also going to soften the blow from the tariffs that he's doing, because the tariffs that he's doing are hurting America, but because of the other monies he's saving in other places, it's softening that blow. So when you have to look at what is the reason behind the tariffs, it's not economic. It's more, what's the word? When you have an ideological. It's more ideological. So it can't really work. You're going to lose money doing that. But I think that because of the money he's saving in the Ukraine, the money that he's and also the war in Palestine, I think once it ends, he's still sending money to Israel, but he's not having to send as many weapons because they're not fighting the conventional war. And
you have to remember, Kool-Aid, that a lot of these trade wars that he started will actually be they'll reach a negotiation. And I keep saying this: America's on the track, whether they like it or not, and whether they know it or not, they're on the track to becoming a de facto member of BRICS, in which they have to give and take. They can't be dogmatic. And one thing about Trump is he's not dogmatic. He's threatened sanctions with people, but then later on they said, okay, let's sit down and let's make a deal. What do you think, Afolabi?
Yeah. Well, but don't you guys think that because this is about $323 million of aid out from South Africa, I feel this is going to push South Africa closer to BRICS, first and foremost. And like you rightly mentioned, a lot of skilled labor leaving South Africa to benefit US is going to help US. The labor cost in US now is going to go down, especially in the manufacturing industry, because most of the things that are manufactured by US brands that are done in China is because of labor costs. But now if you have skilled labor from South Africa, it's going to push down a lot of the labor costs.
Yeah, but so it's a complex dance, because South Africa will also renegotiate with China. And this goes to show the world, China is actually the big boss, China and Russia, because Russia produces most of the world's raw materials. So Russia will always be involved in any major trade agreement.
Yeah.
G20.
And China as well.
Yeah, China has logistics. So they will win.
This will push South Africa closer to the BRICS bloc, and they will be forced to start negotiating trade deals with other countries. They'll find an alternative, but it's going to affect them. Okay, look at this aid that was cut. A significant portion of that aid goes into health, and the health area is HIV and AIDS, and that is a real issue in southern part of Africa, especially Zambia and Namibia. So it's going to affect them in a lot of ways, especially the one on HIV and AIDS. You know, a significant portion of that aid goes to, you know, the health sector. There's no how South Africa.
I have my doubts about that US aid. I think it's being abused. Even the one that actually goes to the health sector.
I agree with you, Kule, but for the health aspect, because of the peculiarity of South Africa and HIV/AIDS, they need it. I feel they need it.
Two things.
But is it getting to them? Are they getting it free? I mean, I don't know anybody that gets free drugs.
They're not getting it. Kool is right. They're not getting it. And also, I follow, but you have to remember that even Trump even in America, the American government doesn't spend on AIDS treatment for AIDS patients. So why should they give aid to an African country?
They'll put one or two people on TV that got it free, but most of them are not getting it.
They're giving the aid, even if they're giving the aid for HIV, is because they have ulterior motive. They want those minerals. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. But and also they had the LGBTQ agenda.
South Africa is resource rich. So why can't South Africa afford to pay for the money for AIDS treatment directly? Why do they need aid? It goes back to corruption. Why is a country as rich? Why is a country with minerals? Why does it need to beg white people across the sea who didn't want to ban apartheid. Why was they banned?
I think it's a mixture of two things. First and foremost, corruption on the government. And then secondly, their failure to educate the black populace over the years has made them less skilled compared to the white people. I think that's where the problem is.
So that's why the economy is bad. So, but that still boils to corruption, because when South Africa handed over in 94 or 96, at that moment, the government should have been spending billions to empower the people, to educate them, and to build a country that can rival China and Brazil and Nigeria and everybody else. But the government didn't do it. They have a skill shortage. I worked in South Africa for 5 years writing, training manuals for training workers. Because if you write training manuals for training workers, the government will give you money. So I worked for a company, a black South African guy, and I would write the training program because they didn't have skill sets. You see what I'm saying? They didn't. And this is a problem. It's several problems. Not only is it the fact that the government is not spending, it's the fact that the Bantu education system that the Dutch South African, or whatever they call themselves, the Boers, whatever, the education system they had, 100 and something years of some rubbish education. So even if you pump money, the orientation of education within black areas in South Africa is low. The educational orientation is, and that's going to take decades to overcome.
Yes,
you go to Zimbabwe or Nigeria. Zimbabweans and Nigerians are super smart. You go to Lesotho. It's because we were British colonies, and even though the British treated us badly, they made sure we had proper education. Within South Africa, blacks were subjugated and they were not allowed to have very good education. What are your thoughts, Kunle?
Yeah, necessity is the mother of all invention. Does anybody remember watching that Ray Charles movie of when he was blind and his mother had to stand back and let him sort himself out? And basically, that's what's going on in Africa with all these things. Remove these things. As long as you keep giving it to them, they're not going to learn how to do it for themselves.
And so this is what is fair. I think it's very fair now that the U.S. cut its aid to South Africa. Not only that, I think Donald Trump needs to leave. Donald Trump, not just Donald Trump, America in general needs to leave Africa alone. They've done enough damage. They don't need to help, because America's help always leads to more catastrophes. What are your thoughts, Afolabi?
Well, I just sincerely hope that, like you guys rightly mentioned, that it pushes Africa to be more self-reliant and depend on self more. My fear is just that, okay, look at the case of the white farmers. If they leave South Africa now and they abandon some of their land that they use for agriculture, there's going to be a skill drain, and some of the products that come from those farms, South Africa may have to turn to importation to replace those products.
Yeah, that happens to Zimbabwe.
Yes, and it's going to affect the economy, whether they like it or not.
Do you guys remember when Nigeria invited the white South Africans to come and farm in Nigeria? We still want you guys to come now. Come.
Those guys are well trained. They are very well trained.
Remember that. I'm not being funny. So to me, South Africa really should be the rainbow nation. They need to get this shit together, man. White people are not going to go anywhere. That's their damn country too. And that expropriation bill that this guy did, he didn't need to do it, because there's already resources.
It wasn't necessary.
He was trying to please the blacks so that they can get more votes in coming elections.
Exactly.
But it was very divisive. It's time for South Africa.
And now that US has removed aid, it can actually act in the opposite direction of creating animosity between the voter base in South Africa.
So I agree. Not only should people leave Africa alone, everybody should just leave South Africa alone. I'm talking about even Africa. They're not really part of an African Union.
They won't leave Africa because the Congo, without the Congo, you have no food, you have no Apple, you have no Samsung.
Minerals.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is that people should leave South Africa alone, not Congo, to do its own. South Africa is an isolationist country too. They don't see themselves as part of the rest of Africa. They talk bad about
America. Also, white goods. When I say palm oil, every single thing, paint, you need palm oil for paint. Anything that's white goods, all white goods.
You forgot one thing.
America doesn't have palm oil.
You forgot one thing. You need palm oil for egusi.
And then where's cocoa? Does America grow cocoa? Because they love chocolate.
Cocoa is
grow coffee. They love coffee.
A lot of the cocoa comes from West Africa.
They're not thinking.
Let me can I tell you something?
They can make all this stuff in their country. It takes 20 years to grow cocoa.
Can I tell you something?
And all that stuff.
A gram of pure cocoa in America costs almost like $200. And let me tell you something. I take that stuff in the morning because if I don't want to drink alcohol or do drugs and stuff, when I take that cocoa, it makes me wake up. It makes me do really good things. So what I'm trying to say, that's a very valuable commodity. What do you think?
It is.
Yeah.
And local cocoa powder in Nigeria is extremely cheap and it's of extremely high quality. I think it's the same stuff. If you sell it abroad, it will cost a hell of a lot of money.
If you take it, it's an antidepressant. It's an antidepressant.
Of course. And a lot of it is produced indigenously. A lot of it is produced in Nigeria.
Next time I go, I'm going to bring 2 suitcases and bring back cocoa.
Did you also know that Italian leather is Nigerian leather?
I'm sure.
It's Nigerian leather. It's not. It's not
Argentina.
The one from the cattle in Kano.
They also do Argentina too.
Fancy leathers from Nigeria, from the tanneries here. They tell their people a lot of lies about where the stuff comes from.
No,
and they think that they're doing more than they're actually doing.
It was West African resources.
Apart from that,
it was West African resources which drove the European Industrial Revolution. Everything that you see now when you go to New York with the buildings and everything, it's all from Congo, Nigeria. Even
shea butter. Shea butter is a very important ingredient of cosmetics. They got it from Nigeria.
Okay.
This is why they're afraid of Russia, because if Russia and China start doing fair deals with us, they're not going to be able to buy uranium. They're buying uranium from Niger, I think 2 cents per pound, and then selling it in Europe at $200 per pound. Some kind of crazy figure like that. Call me if I'm wrong, I don't mind. But I know that
France was doing that. France was doing that.
And it's the same across board with everything else that we're doing business with. So let's get China and Russia, just give us a fair deal. Just give us a fair deal and we'll be fine.
All right, thank you very much. Let's get out of here because this is a Saturday of football.